Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of For the Love of Health web show, where I get the opportunity to bring you short and very powerful interviews with holistic health practitioners and coaches, people who've gone through their own struggles with health and are now choosing to give back to other people. Like, that's a really interesting transition. And I really love the stories that we bring, a lot of wisdom and a lot of strategies to share with you. So tune in today. We are here with Casey Head, and Casey is a Californian, she's a cancer survivor turned cancer coach who offers many layers of support for her audience members and her clients who are currently battling or have been battling with cancer. Welcome to the show, Casey.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Laura.
Absolutely. Cancer is obviously such a prevalent issue, and statistically, many people, maybe 1 in 8, will be having cancer at some point in their lifetime. Not necessarily because of lifestyle, but just because we're living longer lives.
Yeah, 100%.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about the type of cancer you had, and maybe a little bit? I think it would be helpful to our listeners today to hear that you are someone who has had struggled with what they're struggling with currently, and if you'd like to share some insights about that experience.
Absolutely. So, I am a three-time cancer survivor. My journey started about 10 years ago. I was diagnosed with cancer at 31. At the time, I genuinely thought I was at my healthiest, quote unquote. And I say that because now I understand I was not. I thought I was, but I was not, considering the lifestyle changes that I've made today. So 4 months into my treatment, I ended up having a stroke. I finished my protocol, which was 18 months of really intense chemotherapy. 7 weeks later, relapsed the first time. Uh, my body was no longer responding to chemotherapy, so we tried an immunotherapy, didn't work. Um, I was supposed to go on a clinical trial, it got shut down. So we ended up writing a letter of compassion to the FDA and the drug manufacturer for an immunotherapy that was not for my cancer. It's kind of like a Hail Mary, to see if it will work. So after 4 rounds of that, I got into remission. I had a stem cell transplant, and then 6 months later, relapsed again. Obviously, I'm giving you the cliff notes, but I was not prepared for any of that, and that was almost 4.5, 5 years of my journey. That was like straight fighting basically the whole time. Um, and then I got done and everyone was like, you're gonna love life and you're gonna be so happy and grateful and all these things. And although I was very grateful to be done with treatment, I was very grateful to be alive, I was miserable. I was not happy. There was a huge disconnect between reality and the expectations of what I had. And I didn't understand at that time why I was so unhappy and why I was so miserable. I couldn't sleep because I was so afraid all the time. I was trying to get my physical health in line first because that inherently instinctually, like, just I was like, I can do that. Those are actual tangible things, right? Versus the mindset work and the emotional work that needed to be done took a lot longer, I should say.
Mhm.
And most of the women that go through this, I shouldn't just say women, most people who go through this, they say surviving is the hardest part, unfortunately.
Wow, yeah, there's so much to unpack there. And I think that it's just so brave. I mean, I've seen photos because you share them openly, and it was obvious that you were very, very sick, and was at a particular place in your illness too, where you had lost a lot of weight and a lot of energy. So it's like that just really, I know I've spoken to a lot of people with cancer too, and they it seems like just bouts and bouts of treatments that continue to give them other symptoms besides what the illness is causing too. And so, so much complexity, so many experiences there.
I would agree. And, it was not I know that cancer can happen to people, but I never thought I would be someone to get it, let alone at 31. And then trying to rebuild an entire life from that, my world got flipped upside down in an instant. So it
Oh,
was.
yes. Hmm. Yeah. And what type of cancer was it that you said already? Or
Oh, I'm sorry. It's acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which is typically a children's cancer. I just happen to have it at 31, which is extremely rare. And so, with that comes, I was at a teaching hospital at the time of my treatment. So you kind of become like a guinea pig for the residents, unfortunately.
Mhm.
I didn't know that saying yes to them coming into the room meant 20, 30 people at a time, which was really humbling to be surrounded by so many people at your worst.
Who were just curious about you and
Right.
this disease that wasn't supposed to be in a 30-year-old or 31-year-old, or not, it was very rare to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was a learning experience for them. So I totally get it. And usually because it's a children's cancer, which is rare for children, anyways, like a lot of children can't verbalize what they're feeling and going through. And so
Mhm.
I think that's also why they just were like, if you're okay with it, we're bringing everyone in. And I was like, I don't know. I didn't
Wow.
know what I signed up for.
Wow. So like contributing to, yeah, to understanding how other people experience the illness. Wow, that's a very unique experience. So, you know, the diagnosis and understanding how like your life changed just dramatically. And um, did you ever find out some root causes to why this cancer happened, perhaps through genetic testing or family history, autoimmunity? Were there any
Yeah.
known triggers in your research? Because I know that when we get sick, we tend to get into vacuums of research and thinking about this illness. Did you kind of go down that kind of a path?
I sort of did for a minute and then I had to pull myself out because leukemia does not run in my family. It's not genetic. There are, for the leukemia that I had, there are no that I'm aware of genetic markers for it. Um, However, it's been a long time since I've investigated that. The only cancer in our family was like my great grandfather had it. Like it, so it really wasn't, there was no one directly linked to me, I guess you can say. And so although I'd like to think that I figured it out now, I'm not, I'll never be 100% sure. I would attribute it to the massive amount of chronic stress that I was living in, because of all the childhood trauma that I endured. I think it really just eventually took its toll, and my body was like, I can't keep running on empty.
Wow. Well, let's transition this conversation, if we could,
Yeah.
to how you then decided to become a person who now helps other people who are going through similar situations as what you went through.
Yeah. So, like I
How did that decision come about?
it was kind of organic in a way. Like I really did struggle a lot surviving. There's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety, there's just so much going on all at once. And everywhere I looked, there weren't solutions. No one talked about the way they were feeling at that time when I was coming into my survivorship journey. Like I literally couldn't find anyone on Instagram. I couldn't find anything when I Googled over and over cancer treatment ended. Now what? There was nothing. And I was like, I kind of hit, I would call my rock bottom. And I was like, you've got to figure this out. Like, you didn't survive all that to like live like this. And I just put my head down and did what I thought was necessary to find solutions for everything that I was feeling and going through physically, mentally, and emotionally. And the more I shared, not only with what I was struggling with online, the solutions that I had and figured out and discovered, the more women were asking me, what did you do? How did you do it? Like, and asking organic questions. And I was like, I have an opportunity to really help people. And so then I wrote a book, and I developed all these um, programs to help people, because I was like, if it just helps one person, that's all that matters. And that was kind of the vision at first. And it's just grown from there. And it's just service over everything for me.
Well, I think that what you said, of like having gone through that and wanting to live differently, the way that you phrased that was so perfect for like a t-shirt or something. It's such a great kind of anthem to get behind. And um yeah, it's so interesting, right? This world we're kind of getting into where it's like lived experience is something so valuable, and it's the question of credibility and what makes someone able to help another person. And so it makes sense that you are creating a solution because you yourself couldn't find that solution when you were looking for it. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. Like, even so, I even drilled down to find a therapist that, specialized in cancer. And even in our sessions together, there were times where we would literally butt heads, where I would say something and I'm like, but you don't understand, you've never gone through this. She's like, I do understand. I finally asked her, I go, have you ever had cancer? And she goes, no, I haven't. And I go, then you cannot understand what I am talking about. You can empathize and you can be compassionate, but you do not understand. And she finally agreed to disagree on that. But I
Mhm.
was like, you don't. There
Yeah.
is something about living through something so unrelatable that you cannot, it's not, it's not like, we all have taken a test before, right? At some point in our lives. There's nothing comparable to this.
No. No, and cancer is, let's say 1 in 7, 1 in 8 people will get cancer in this
Yeah. And I
United
think,
States. It's inevitable for many people, but it's something we've othered so often. It's some like it's this thing we don't want to deal with. But I think what you're doing is great because it offers the coaching space, which a lot of people don't understand the coaching space either, right? How coaches are different than other types of practitioners. So um, it's a different kind of conversation, opportunity, and support system.
yeah. And it really, I think, helps everyone achieve their goals in a way that a therapist can't do. Like, a therapist is technically there to help you understand your feelings in that moment, but they really, outside of that hour you have with them, you're on your own.
Yes.
Whereas a coach can be there with you the entire way when you slip and fall, to help you back up and get towards the goal again.
Yeah. And with cancer, it's reoccurrences and um yeah, it's what an interesting journey, one that I think that everybody deserves some kind of support on, whether or not they're sick. Um, so how can people find you if they need some support?
I'm on Instagram and Facebook at The Happier Hustle. And you're always going to reach out. It's going to be me. And I have a website as well, but I also have a free community on Facebook, a paid community as well. So there's options for everyone to be in my world. And it just depends on what type of support you are interested in and are needing at that moment. I mean, I honestly, if I would have found a cancer coach after my journey, I would have paid them anything. I would have given like a left hand to work with somebody to help me do things differently, faster, and more efficiently and effectively,
Mhm.
to get back to living life, right? That's the whole point of surviving.
Yeah. And what is the title of your book?
It is Finding Your Way Back to Heart Center. Cancer treatment ended. Now what? And you can find it on Amazon.
Yeah. Is there like how long did that book take you?
Honestly, I wish it took a long time, but it poured out of me and my fingers couldn't type fast enough at certain times. That's why I was like, I don't know what just happened, but I wrote a book.
Yeah. And what do you hope our listeners today or at any point like walk away thinking in regards to like this conversation or their journey they're on?
They're not alone and there's always support. You just have to reach out and accept it. Like there are people that are out there, including myself, that genuinely from the bottoms of our hearts are willing to go above and beyond to help you get out of the place that you're stuck in.
Yeah, and would you what would you say like were like the top like few things that really helped you kind of because I mean, it's interesting because you're able to help people with things now that you didn't have. So how are you able to maneuver through that on your own? Like what kind of kept you going?
I kept thinking there had to be solutions, number one. Like I couldn't be this anomaly that was feeling this way. Like there had to have been solutions. And so there weren't direct cancer solutions, but I took a lot of different things and applied them to my journey, if that makes sense. I took like the gist of it and then I was like, okay, that's sort of close, but like let's change that question to this and then it makes sense. And I always looked for what I could do control wise, not like outside of my periphery, right? Like if it was something that I could control, either an action, a habit, a thought, I tied to that versus like all this unknown of ambiguity. And if I can talk, that would help. Ambiguity of life where you don't have control over a lot. I just focused on what I could.
And you mentioned that your lifestyle, some of the lifestyle factors did have to change.
Mhm.
So I guess, and I know that like, of course, lifestyle is totally prevalent in any kind of health condition and lifestyle is so we overall we're just not really quite navigating there. You mentioned chronic stress earlier in the conversation. So what were some of the for our listeners today who do have cancer or may have family members who do have cancer, what are some of like some of the factors that maybe you had to change or adjust that you felt were absolutely must have to support your health journey through cancer?
Yeah, I drastically reduced my stress. Like my corporate job, I commuted 2 hours every day and worked 50 plus hours a week. I don't do that anymore. Um, I sacrificed, working at a company for 10 years for my health, like for my health. And now I knew I had to prioritize it, right? I definitely eat differently. I have cut out alcohol basically except for like maybe once or twice a year. Um, so there are many things about my life that I have changed. I lived in Chicago. I moved to California because I wanted to be outdoors more. There are just things that those daily bits of joy that I can have really increase your immunity and things like that versus like I would sit inside during every winter and not leave my house. Like that's not healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing those. I mean, would you are there some like go-to things that you were told by doctors or other practitioners for, supporting your cancer journey or, things that they're like, absolutely you can't. Like I know I heard, sugar, don't ever ingest a lot of sugar when you have cancer. Were there some of those rules that came up for you that you were like, okay, I will do that now?
No, my doctors basically said eat whatever you want and rest and relax. And I was like, that inherently, like instinctually, I knew that wasn't right. I made it a point to eat as best I could and made it a point to walk every single day at least. Um, because my gut was like, that's not right. Uh, so I guess I didn't have any good advice given to me, honestly. I just got really bad advice and didn't listen to it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's maybe like a certain less context at all and less of the things that you thought that you should be provided.
Right, right. And that's the funny thing is like Even from when I was in treatment to now, things have changed drastically and they needed to, but they're still not where they need to be at all.
Okay, and what would that future do you think where do you think it should go? I know that's a challenge, but what kind of thing
Oh boy.
should we envision, and where should that be, in
I
your
mean,
opinion, of the people you've talked
num
to?
yeah, no, I think number one, if we actually practice preventative medicine, I think that would help a lot of people, especially with avoiding hopefully chronic illness and disease. I think that is number one. If we started practicing preventative medicine, I think number two would be integrated medicine, where it's not just you go and you're medicated for whatever problem you're having. There are definitely solutions outside of the pill box that are so impactful to your everyday life. That would be number two. And number three is like when somebody goes through a massive trauma, such as cancer or a heart attack or something, they have, like I said, again, integrated medicine with it, where you're seeing a therapist, you're seeing a PT, OT, getting you back to living life. And ultimately, that's going to save the insurance companies a lot of money, but they don't see that.
Did you do any alternative therapies, within your cancer journey?
I did. So I did acupuncture until I couldn't because my platelets and blood were too low and they didn't want to even risk me doing that. Um, so I did do that. I did, why am I blanking on what I did? I did yoga, which I don't know if you want to call it as holistic, but it is, in my opinion, like it's mindful movement. I did that. Those were the two big things. I tried to do the massage, but my body was just so not accepting of other people's touch at that time, that I did it once and then I was like, I can't, it's so uncomfortable. Like everything just hurt my body, and having another person touch it hurt more instead of like, maybe it didn't make me relax, I guess you could say.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. And, the acupuncture, acupuncture for were you getting it for, like, symptom management or
Yeah, so like it was a big help for managing nausea and some of just the overall pain that I was in because it was constant. So that definitely helped manage that. Uh, and just some of the anxiety, right? Like mentally, you're just so worried all the time about managing the side effects that you're like, I, it just like it's just like it's like a full-time job.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to, like, think of, like, which meridians, and I think, like, certain spots on the body that would be for, and, but I could probably figure that out later and add it to the show notes of this episode. Are there any resources or links that you will be sharing with our community today? Which is, we have people in our community who have cancer and family members who have cancer. So, and again, it's something that's going to be touching everybody at some point. So, what kinds of things did you want them to know about, so they can kind of leave the episode seeing those things?
Number one is, although they tell you to eat whatever you want, don't. Try to eat as healthy as you can. Although, that is a challenge in and of itself, right? Like it's hard to keep down food. And then if you're compromised in your weight, in your and you can't eat certain foods, like it makes it even more challenging. But I would say at least get up, walk 20 minutes every single day if you can. It's like a non-negotiable for your mental and physical health, in my opinion. You'll end up getting through treatment a lot with a lot less struggle to get back to living life. Prioritize your sleep. Definitely manage the nausea as best you can. I started to eat one plain carb in the morning, like either a half a piece of toast or a half a like mini bagel, and just that without anything on it. And that seemed to coat my stomach enough where I could eat the rest of the day pretty normal, I would say. Considering what I was getting chemo like 4 or 5 times a week. And then I was taking pills every day, like for chemotherapy pills. So I was like on a massive dose of it. Another thing that helped me with the nausea was actually getting C-bands. I don't know if it was psychological or not, but it helped.
Mhm. It's an
That's for
acupuncture point.
yeah, exactly. So it helped a lot. And then to when it when you're entering recovery or you're even struggling for a moment during your journey, you have to reach out sooner rather than later. Like your mental health is such a priority because if your mind's not in it, it's going to be a whole heck of a lot harder to get through it physically and emotionally. So I would say get your mind right every single day you wake up. Just know that you're going to make it and keep the hope alive. That's it. Like you have to keep the hope alive.
Beautiful. Well, I love that message, of course. I think that you're such a brave person. And it just the work is profound. So I look forward to just getting to know your company more and seeing what kinds of things you're putting together this year and how you're supporting people. So thank you so much, Casey, for coming on the show today and sharing just a bit of your journey with us.
Oh, thank you so much, Laura. I appreciate it.
Have a good day.